The sun bled red over the Sierra Nevada, painting the jagged peaks in hues of fire and shadow. Jake Turner, 27, hauled himself up a rocky slope near Lake Sabrina, his boots slipping on loose shale. His girlfriend, Ellie Morse, trailed a few feet behind, her breath puffing in the crisp May air. It was 2008, and the couple had spent the day hiking, chasing solitude in the wild heart of California's mountains. The trail was a tough 15 miles of steep switchbacks, 10,000 feet above sea level, but Jake loved the burn in his legs, the way the world felt raw up here. "Jake, slow down," Ellie called, her voice sharp with annoyance. "You're gonna break your damn neck." He grinned over his shoulder, wiping sweat from his brow. "Come on, babe, we're almost at the ridge. View's gonna be killer." Ellie muttered something about friggin' show-offs, but kept climbing, her backpack bouncing against her denim jacket. The air was thin, the wind carrying a chill that didn't match the fading daylight. Jake reached a flat outcrop and dropped his pack, scanning the horizon. The lake glittered below, a mirror of sapphire nestled between granite cliffs. But something else caught his eye, a flash of color, unnatural against the gray stone. "Hey, Ellie, check this out," he said, squinting. Wedged between two massive boulders, half buried in dirt, was a tattered green canvas. A tent, collapsed and torn, its frame bent like broken bones. Ellie caught up, panting. "What the hell's that doing here? This trail's barely used." Jake crouched, tugging at the canvas. It was heavy, soaked from years of snowmelt, and smelled of mildew. "Looks old, like, real old." He yanked harder, and the tent shifted, revealing a glimpse of its contents. A sleeping bag, stained and frayed. A rusted tin can, and something else, a small, leather-bound notebook, its pages curled with moisture. Ellie knelt beside him, her curiosity overriding her unease. "Careful, Jake. Could be some hiker's trash, or worse." "Worse?" He smirked, but his voice wavered. "What, like a bear's diary?" She didn't laugh. The wind picked up, whistling through the rocks, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jake flipped open the notebook, its spine cracking. The handwriting was faded but legible, scrawled in blue ink. He read aloud, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The 11th of June, 1989. Someone's out there, not sure if it's help, or worse." Ellie froze, her hazel eyes wide. 1989? That's 19 years ago. Jake's fingers trembled as he turned the page. Names were scratched in the margin. Mark, Evan, Chris. Below them, a shaky sentence. "Storm's bad. Can't see the trail. Heard footsteps." He looked up at Ellie, his smirk gone. "This ain't trash, Elle. This is something else." Before Ellie could respond, a sharp, rhythmic sound cut through the silence. Tap, 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 like stones clacking together, deliberate and close. Jake's head snapped toward the sound, his heart thudding. "You hear that?" Ellie nodded, her face pale. She fumbled for the flashlight in her pack, clicking it on. The beam swept across the slope, catching glints of quartz in the rocks. "Jake, maybe we should." The light flickered, then died. "Damn it." Ellie shook the flashlight, but it stayed dark. The tapping grew louder, closer, echoing off the cliffs. Jake grabbed her arm, pulling her to her feet. "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice cracking. The wind swallowed his words, and the tapping stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, from the shadowed tree line, a figure moved swift, barely a blur in the dying light. Ellie gasped, stumbling back. "Jake, did you see that?" "I saw it," he said, his voice low, urgent. "We're not alone up here." Ellie's hand shook as she reached for the notebook, but something small and metallic rolled out from the tent's folds. It glinted in the last rays of sunlight, a silver ring engraved with the letters MEC. She picked it up, her breath hitching. "Jake, this belonged to someone. Someone who was here." Jake's eyes darted to the tree line. The air felt heavy, oppressive, like the mountain itself was watching. "We need to get this to the sheriff, now." 2 hours later, Sarah Holland stood at the same outcrop, her boots crunching on the frost-kissed ground. The stars were out now, sharp and cold above Lake Sabrina, but the scene before her was anything but serene. The tattered green tent lay sprawled across the rocks, surrounded by yellow crime scene tape that fluttered in the wind. At 38, Sarah was the lead forensic tech for the Inyo County Sheriff's Office, a job she'd taken to escape the ghosts of her own past. But tonight, those ghosts were clawing their way back. Deputy Tom Reeves, a burly man with a graying mustache, handed her a thermos of coffee. 19 damn years, Sarah. These kids were our age when they vanished. How the hell does a tent stay hidden this long? Sarah took a sip, the bitter warmth grounding her. This mountain's got a way of keeping secrets, Tom. You know that better than anyone. Her voice was steady, but her mind was racing. She'd grown up in Bishop, a small town of 3,000 souls, nestled at the foot of the Sierra Nevada. Everyone knew the story of Mark Bennett, Evan Price, and Chris Cruz, and 3 high school seniors who'd gone camping in June 1989 and never came back. Their faces had haunted flyers, diner windows, and Sarah's own nightmares. She'd been 19 then, same as them, and the loss had hit hard. Harder still was her own secret. A friend, Lisa, who'd vanished on a hike in '95. Sarah had never stopped wondering what she could have done differently. She knelt beside the tent, her gloved hands careful as she examined the contents. 3 sleeping bags, mildewed and torn. A rusted fishing reel. A Polaroid SX70 camera, its lens cracked, and the notebook, now sealed in an evidence bag. Sarah opened it, her flashlight illuminating the scrawled words, the 10th of June, 1989. Storm's bad. Evan's freaking out. Heard something moving outside. The next page was worse, the 11th of June. Food's gone. Can't get a fire going. Footsteps again, closer now. Jesus, Tom muttered, peering over her shoulder. Sounds like they were scared out of their minds. Sarah's stomach twisted. They were just kids, Tom, 18 years old, thinking they could take on the world. She flipped to the last entry, the one Jake had read. Someone's out there. Not sure if it's help, or worse. The handwriting was shaky, the ink smeared, as if written in a panic. Jake and Ellie stood nearby, wrapped in blankets, their faces pale under the sheriff's floodlights. Ellie clutched the silver ring, her knuckles white. We didn't touch much, she said, her voice trembling. Just the notebook, and this. She held out the ring, its mech engraving catching the light. Sarah took it, her gloved fingers tracing the letters. Mark, Evan, Chris, she said softly. They had these made senior year, a pact, their parents said, to stick together, no matter what. Jake shifted, his eyes darting to the tree line. Sheriff, you heard anything about weird stuff up here? Like noises or people? Tom raised an eyebrow. You mean besides the wind and the coyotes? I'm serious, Jake snapped. There was something out there, tapping, like someone was trying to mess with us, and that figure it moved too fast to be a hiker. Sarah exchanged a glance with Tom. Bishop had its share of ghost stories, tales of those who walk in the storm, spirits said to lure hikers to their doom. She'd never bought into the rumors, but the tapping Jake described sent a chill down her spine. Lisa had mentioned hearing something similar, right before she vanished. Let's not jump to conclusions, Sarah said, her tone calm but firm. We'll get a team up here at first light, comb every inch of this ridge. Tom nodded, but his eyes were uneasy. You think this is them, don't you? The Bennett case. Sarah didn't answer. She didn't need to. The ring, the notebook, the date all pointed to one thing. After 19 years, the lost boys of Bishop had resurfaced. But why now? And why here, on a trail so remote it was barely a footnote on park maps? She turned back to the tent, her flashlight sweeping over the canvas. Something glinted inside a second Polaroid, half buried under a sleeping bag. She reached for it, her pulse quickening. The photo was faded, the colors washed out, but the image was clear enough. 3 boys, huddled in the tent, their faces lit by a flashlight. Mark, with his crooked grin. Evan, eyes wide with fear. Chris, clutching a pocket knife, his jaw set. They were alive, at least when the photo was taken. But there was something else, a shadow in the corner, blurred but unmistakable. A hand, gloved, reaching toward the camera. Sarah's breath caught. Tom, look at this. He leaned in, his face grim. What the hell? That's no reflection. No, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. Someone was with them. The wind howled, carrying a faint, eerie tapping from the darkness beyond the floodlights. Sarah's hand tightened on the photo, her mind racing. The boys hadn't just vanished in that storm. Someone or something had been there, watching, waiting, and now, 19 years later, it was stirring again. She stood, her boots crunching on the frost. We need to get this back to the station, run DNA, prints, everything, and I want a full sweep of this area tomorrow. Tom hesitated. Sarah, you sure you want to dive into this? After, you know. Lisa's face flashed in her mind, laughing, fearless, until the mountain took her. Sarah shoved the memory down. I'm sure, she said, her voice steel. These boys deserve answers, and I'm not letting this mountain bury them again. Ellie's voice broke the tension, small and scared. Sheriff, you think whoever was out there is still around? Sarah didn't answer right away. She scanned the tree line, her flashlight cutting through the fog. The tapping had stopped, but the silence was worse, heavy, suffocating, like the mountain was holding its breath. She was about to turn away when her beam caught something strange, 50 yards out. A circle of stones, arranged in a perfect ring, each one streaked with dark, weathered stains. In the center, a pile of small bones, rabbits, maybe, or something else. It twisted into a spiral. Her blood ran cold. Tom, she said, her voice low. You see that? He followed her gaze, his hand resting on his holster. What in God's name? Before he could finish, a sound sliced through the night, a low, guttural whisper, carried on the wind. Go back. Sarah spun, her flashlight sweeping the ridge, but the darkness swallowed everything. The whisper came again, closer now, chilling her to the bone. Go back. Ellie screamed, dropping the blanket. Jake pulled her close, his eyes wild. What the hell was that? Sarah's heart pounded, but she forced her voice to stay steady. Everyone, back to the trucks, now. As they scrambled down the slope, the whisper lingered, echoing off the rocks. Sarah clutched the Polaroid, the gloved hand staring back at her. The mountain had kept its secrets for 19 years. But tonight, it was speaking, and it wasn't done yet. The Bishop Sheriff Station smelled of burnt coffee and old paper, a squat brick building on Main Street where time seemed to have stalled since the Reagan years. Inside, Sarah Hollins hunched over a folding table, the green tint's contents spread out like a grim puzzle. The notebook, the Polaroid, the silver MEC ring. They stared back at her, whispering secrets she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. It was past midnight, May 2008, and the weight of 19 years pressed against her chest like a stone. Deputy Tom Reeves slouched in a chair nearby, nursing a Coors Light he'd smuggled in. You're gonna burn a hole through that notebook, Sarah, he said, his voice rough from a long day. Go home, get some sleep. Sleep? Sarah snorted, not looking up. 19 years, Tom. These kids were our age when they vanished. And now this damn tent shows up? I'm not sleeping till we figure out what the hell happened. Tom sighed, scratching his graying mustache. You sound like Donna Bennett. Woman's been living in that same nightmare since '89. Sarah's fingers paused on the notebook. Donna, Mark's mother. She could still picture her at the search rallies, clutching a faded photo of her son, her voice raw as she begged for answers. Sarah had been 19 then, working part-time at the diner, pouring coffee for volunteers who came back empty-handed. The whole town had felt it, the suffocating dread when hope faded to grief. And now, with a tense discovery, it was all clawing its way back. She flipped open the notebook again, her flashlight catching the ink. The 10th of June, 1989. Storm's bad. Evan's freaking out, heard something moving outside. The words were jagged, written by a kid who knew he was in trouble. Sarah's mind drifted, pulling her back to that summer when Bishop was a different place, a small town of 3,000 where kids rode bikes to the drive-in and families left their doors unlocked. A place where 3 boys thought they could outrun anything, even a mountain. June 9, 1989, Bishop, California. Mark Bennett leaned against his beat-up Toyota pickup, a 79 model with peeling red paint and a busted radio. The sun was high, baking the dirt lot outside his family's ranch house on Pine Street. At 18, Mark was all lean muscle and restless energy, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he stuffed a green canvas tent into the truck bed. Evan Price, wiry and freckled, tossed in a cooler packed with Budweiser and bologna sandwiches. Chris Cruz, the quiet one, checked their fishing rods, his hands steady despite the nervous twitch in his jaw. "Yo, Mark, you sure about this trail?" Evan asked, slamming the cooler shut. "My dad says it's a bitch steep as hell, no markers." Mark grinned, tossing a Walkman into the cab. "That's the point, man. No tourists, no rangers. Just us in the mountains. 3 days at Lake Sabrina, fishing, drinking, living like kings before college screws us over." "Horrend?" Chris looked up, his dark eyes narrowing. "Weather's iffy though. Radio said there's a chance of showers." Evan rolled his eyes. "Showers? Come on, Cruz. Don't be a baby. We've camped in worse." Mark clapped Chris on the shoulder. "Relax, buddy. We've got the tent, sleeping bags, enough food for a week. What's a little rain gonna do?" Chris didn't answer, but his grip tightened on the rods. They'd been friends since kindergarten. Mark the fearless leader, Evan the loudmouth, Chris the thinker. They'd shared everything. Scraped knees, first crushes, dreams of escaping Bishop's small-town trap. This trip was their last hurrah, a middle finger to adulthood before Mark headed to Fresno State, Evan to a mechanic's apprenticeship, and Chris to a community college in Reno. Donna Bennett stepped onto the porch, her apron dusted with flour. "Mark, you got enough blankets? It gets cold up there, even in June." Mark groaned, but his smile was warm. "Mom, we're fine. Got the whole truck loaded. We'll call Sunday night, promise." She crossed her arms, worry creasing her face. "You better. And stick to the trail, you hear me? No shortcuts." "Yes, ma'am," Mark said, saluting. Evan snickered, and Chris gave a small wave. They piled into the truck, Springsteen blaring from a cassette as they peeled out, gravel crunching under the tires. Donna watched them go, a knot tightening in her gut. She didn't know why, but something felt wrong. That afternoon, the boys hit the trailhead, a narrow path winding up from Lake Sabrina. They hiked 5 miles, laughing and snapping Polaroids, Mark posing by a stream, Evan flipping off the camera, Chris sketching the wildflowers in his notebook. At 9,000 feet, they pitched the tent in a clearing, the air sharp with pine and promise. Mark scribbled in his journal, the 9th of June. "Best day ever. Gonna miss these guys." By Saturday night, the 10th of June, the sky turned ugly. Clouds swallowed the stars, and a wind roared down from the peaks, rattling the tent. The temperature plummeted to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and rain hammered the canvas. Inside, the boys huddled in their sleeping bags, their flashlight casting jittery shadows. "Friggin' hell," Evan muttered, teeth chattering. "This ain't showers, Mark. This is a goddamn monsoon." Mark forced a laugh, but his eyes were tense. "We'll wait it out. Storm's gotta pass by morning." Chris sat up, his face pale in the dim light. "You hear that?" "What?" Evan snapped, pulling his jacket tighter. "Listen." Chris's voice was low, urgent. Outside, beyond the rain's roar, was a faint sound crunching, like boots on gravel. It stopped, then started again, closer. Mark grabbed the flashlight, his hand shaking. "Probably a deer," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. He unzipped the tent flap, shining the beam into the darkness. The light caught nothing but rain and swaying pines. Then, a sharp crack like a branch snapping. Evan yelped, and Chris clutched his pocket knife. "Someone's out there," Chris whispered. "I swear I saw something move." Mark's jaw tightened. "Stay here." He stepped out, the storm swallowing him. Evan and Chris waited, hearts pounding, minutes dragged like hours. When Mark stumbled back, soaked and wild-eyed, he zipped the flap shut with trembling hands. "What was it?" Evan demanded. Mark didn't answer right away. He scribbled in the notebook, his pen shaking, the 10th of June. "Storm's bad." Evan's freaking out, heard something moving outside. Finally, he muttered, "I don't know, but we're not alone." May 2008. Bishop, California. Sarah snapped the notebook shut, her pulse racing. The sheriff's station was quiet now, save for the hum of a flickering fluorescent light. Tom had gone home, leaving her alone with the evidence. She reached for the Polaroid, the one with the gloved hand in the corner. The boys' faces stared back, Mark's grin, Evan's fear, Chris's defiance, but that hand, it wasn't theirs. Someone else had been there, close enough to touch. Her phone buzzed, jarring her. It was Jesse Bennett, Mark's younger brother. At 35, Jesse was a mechanic, his hands perpetually stained with grease, his eyes carrying the weight of 19 years without answers. Sarah had called him earlier, breaking the news about the tent. Now, he was on his way. The station door swung open, and Jesse strode in, his Levi's jacket damp from the night air. "Show me," he said, no preamble. His voice was rough, like he'd been shouting into the void for decades. Sarah slid the evidence bag across the table. "It's Mark's notebook, and this." She held up the ring, its MEC engraving glinting under the light. Jesse's breath hitched. He took the ring, turning it over in his calloused fingers. "They made these senior year," he said, his voice cracking. "Mark, Evan, Chris, said they'd never split up, no matter what." He looked at Sarah, his eyes blazing. 19 years, and now this shows up. Someone's been hiding it, Sarah. I'd bet my life on it. "Ins for." She nodded, her own unease mirroring his. "We're running DNA on the tent, the sleeping bags, everything. And this photo." She hesitated, then handed him the Polaroid. "Look at the corner." Jesse squinted, his face hardening. "What the hell is that?" "A hand?" "Gloved," Sarah said. "Not one of the boys. Someone was in that tent with them, or close enough to grab the camera." Jesse slammed the ring down, his fist trembling. "Then where are they? If someone was there, why didn't they help? Why didn't they?" His voice broke, and he turned away, rubbing his eyes. Sarah touched his arm, her voice soft but firm. "We'll find out, Jess, I promise." He didn't respond, but the air between them crackled with unspoken grief. Sarah's mind flashed to Donna Bennett, Mark's mother. She was 60 now, living alone in the same ranch house, her life frozen since that summer. Sarah had called her, too, but Donna hadn't answered. She could picture her, sitting in Mark's old room, surrounded by his baseball trophies and faded posters, clinging to a bottle of bourbon. The station phone rang, shrill in the silence. Sarah grabbed it, her heart skipping. Hollins. It was Clara Vance, a retired reporter who'd covered the case in '89. Her voice was low, urgent. "Sarah, I heard about the tent. You need to see something. I've got a Tapia call from that night. It's not right." Sarah's grip tightened on the phone. "What kind of call?" "A kid, begging for help. Sounds like one of your boys. But there's another voice, whispering something. I ignored it back then, thought it was static. But now," Clara's voice wavered. "I think I screwed up, Sarah. I think I could have saved them." "Bring it in," Sarah said, her tone sharp. "Now." As she hung up, Jesse turned, his eyes narrowing. "What was that about?" Sarah didn't answer right away. She opened the notebook again, flipping to an earlier entry, the 9th of June. "Best day ever. Gonna miss these guys." Below it, a doodly crude sketch of a circle with a spiral inside, like the one she'd seen on the ridge. Her blood ran cold. She grabbed the second Polaroid, one Jake and Ellie had missed. It was blurry, taken outside the tent, showing a distant green light in the Storm Natural, pulsing, nothing like a campfire or flashlight. "Jess," she said, her voice barely steady. "This light, it's not normal. Not for 1989. He leaned in, his breath catching. "What are you saying?" I'm saying this wasn't just a storm. Something else was out there. She pointed to the notebook's spiral doodle. And this matches the stones we found, the ones with the bones. Jesse's face paled. You think someone, what, set them up? Sacrificed them? I don't know, Sarah admitted. But we're missing something big. The station door creaked open, and Sarah's hand went to her holster. It was only Clara, clutching a cassette tape, her face ashen. You need to hear this, she said, her voice trembling. She popped the tape into an old player on the desk, and static crackled to life. A boy's voice, panicked, desperate, filled the room. Please, we're at Lake Sabrina. The storm's bad. We can't. Someone is out here. It was Evan, unmistakable from old home videos Sarah had seen. The line hissed, and then another voice, low and guttural, cut through. Stay away. The tape clicked off. Clara's hand shook. That was the 10th of June, 1989. I thought it was a prank. I was wrong. Sarah's heart pounded, her eyes locked on the Polaroid's green light. The boys hadn't just vanished. They'd been hunted, and now, 19 years later, the mountain was whispering again. She stood, grabbing her jacket. Jess, Clara, we're going to Donna's. She needs to know. As they stepped into the night, a sharp tap 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 echoed from the alley behind the station like stones clacking together. Sarah spun, her flashlight sweeping the darkness, but nothing moved. The air was heavy, suffocating, and the whisper from the ridge echoed in her mind, go back. She clutched the Polaroid, the gloved hand staring back. Someone had been with the boys that night, and someone or something was still watching. The Bishop Sheriff Station was a hive of restless energy the next morning, May 2008. The air smelled of stale coffee and printer ink, and the fluorescent lights buzzed like angry wasps. Sarah Holland stood before a corkboard, pinning up the Polaroid with a gloved hand, the MEC ring, and a photocopy of Mark Bennett's notebook. Her eyes burned from a sleepless night, but her mind was razor-sharp, slicing through the fragments of a 19-year-old mystery. The cassette tape Clara Vance had brought in lay on the table, its haunting voices, Evan's desperate plea, the guttural whisper still echoing in her head. Deputy Tom Reeves slouched against the wall, his boots scuffing the linoleum. You're gonna drive yourself nuts, Sarah, he said, sipping from a chipped mug. That tape's creepy as hell, but it's not proof of anything. Could have been a prank call. Sarah spun, her voice low and fierce. A prank? With Evan's voice, begging for help? And that whisper, stay away? You telling me that's nothing, Tom? He raised his hands, defensive. I'm just saying, we've got no bodies, no crime scene. Just a tent and some old junk. Don't go chasing ghosts. She didn't answer, her gaze fixed on the Polaroid. The gloved hand in the corner wasn't just a shadow, it was deliberate, like someone had lunged for the camera. Her gut twisted. 19 years ago, Mark, Evan, and Chris had been out there, trapped in a storm, and someone had been close enough to touch them. But who and why? The station door banged open, and Clara Vance stormed in, her gray hair wild, a manila folder tucked under her arm. The retired reporter was all sharp angles and sharper eyes, a woman who'd spent decades digging up Bishop's secrets. Sarah, you need to see this, she said, slapping the folder on the table. I was up all night, going through my old files from '89, found something I missed. Sarah's pulse quickened. What kind of something? Clara opened the folder, revealing a yellowed police report, a call log from the night the boys disappeared, the 10th of June, 1989. A gas station clerk 20 miles from Lake Sabrina reported 3 kids, soaked to the bone, begging for change to use the payphone. Said they looked scared out of their minds. The call got buried. Sheriff back then thought it was unrelated. Jesse Bennett, who'd been silent in the corner, shot to his feet. His Levi's jacket was rumpled, his hands clenched into fists. Scared? That was them, Clara, Mark, Evan, Chris. They made it off the mountain? Maybe, Clara said, her voice cautious. But the clerk said they ran off into the rain before he could get a good look. And here's the kicker. She pulled out a grainy photocopy of a Polaroid, different from the one Sarah had. It showed a blurry figure near a payphone, wearing a dark jacket and a ranger's hat. This was in the evidence locker, misfiled, taken by the clerk's security camera. Sarah's breath caught. The figure's face was obscured, but the jacket had a patch of faded emblem, like the ones Rangers wore in the 80s. Jim Harlow, she said, almost to herself. The name hung heavy in the room. Who? Jesse demanded, his voice raw. Jim Harlow, Clara said, her eyes narrowing. Forest ranger in '89, loner, ex-Marine, had a reputation for hating hikers who strayed off trail. Quit his post a month after the boys vanished and dropped off the map. Some folks thought he knew more than he let on. Tom snorted, but his unease was palpable. Harlow was a crank, not a killer. You're grasping at straws. Sarah ignored him, flipping through Mark's notebook. A faded entry caught her eye. The 10th of June, Ranger Guy warned us to stay off the ridge, said it was dangerous. Kept staring at us, like he knew something. Her heart pounded. This isn't a coincidence, Tom. Harlow was there. He saw them. Jesse's face darkened. If that bastard hurt my brother. We don't know that, Sarah cut in, her voice firm. But we're going to find out. Clara, you got anything else on Harlow? Clara nodded, pulling a small journal from her folder. His field notes, swiped from the ranger station before he left. Listen to this. She read aloud, her voice steady but chilled. The 12th of June, 1989, saw lights on the ridge. 3 boys, too stubborn to listen. They're not alone up there. Can't let it happen again. Sarah's blood ran cold. Again? What does that mean? Clara shook her head. No idea, but Harlow was rattled. His notes get weirder after that, talks about voices in the wind, shadows that don't move right. He was either losing it, or hiding something big. Jesse slammed his fist on the table, rattling the coffee mugs. We need to find this guy. If he's still alive, I'm dragging the truth out of him. He's not, Clara said quietly. Died in '99, heart attack, up in Reno, but his nephew's still around, lives out by the old mill. Might know something. Sarah nodded, her mind racing. We'll talk to him. But first, I want to go back to the ridge. There's something about those stones, the spiral with the bones. It's not random. Tom stood, his jaw tight. Sarah, you're chasing a ghost story. Those stones are probably some hippie's art project. Then why were they stained? She snapped. And why did we hear that whisper last night? Go back. You heard it, Tom. Don't pretend you didn't. He looked away, his face pale. I heard wind, that's all. Jesse grabbed his jacket, his eyes blazing. I'm coming with you. If there's anything up there, I'm finding it. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But we do this by the book, no cowboy stuff, Jess. As they headed out, Clara called after them, her voice sharp. Be careful, Sarah. I ignored that call in '89. Thought it was nothing. Don't make my mistake. The words hung in the air, heavy as the mountain fog. The trail to Lake Sabrina was a beast, a 5-mile climb through pine-choked switchbacks and slick granite. Sarah drove her Ford Bronco, its tires crunching gravel, while Jesse sat shotgun, staring out at the looming peaks. The air was crisp, 45 degrees Fahrenheit, but the sun was high, casting jagged shadows across the trailhead. They parked near the spot where Jake and Ellie had found the tent, now cordoned off with sheriff's tape. A half-dozen deputies and volunteers were already there, combing the slope with grim determination. Sarah led the way, her Maglite flashlight clipped to her belt, a Glock holstered at her hip. Jesse followed, his boots heavy on the path. The ridge felt different and daylightless, menacing, but still oppressive, like the mountain was holding its breath. They reached the outcrop where the tent had been found, the boulders stark against the blue sky. The circle of stones was still there, its spiral of bones gleaming like a warning. Jesse crouched, his fingers brushing the stained rocks. What the hell is this, Sarah? Some kind of ritual? She didn't answer right away, her eyes scanning the tree line. The memory of last night's whisper go back clawed at her. I don't know, she said finally. But it's not natural. Those bones, they're too neat, too arranged. A deputy called out from below, waving them over. Hollins, you need to see this. They scrambled down, finding a young deputy named Ruiz standing over a shallow crevice in the rock. Inside, half buried in dirt, was a rusted metal box, its latch snapped. Sarah pried it open, her pulse hammering. Inside were 3 items: a tattered map, a Polaroid, and a single .45 caliber bullet casing, its brass tarnished, but intact. The map was hand-drawn, showing a trail leading to a place marked, No Name Gully. The Polaroid was chilling a shot of the boys' tent, taken from a distance, its flaps fluttering in the storm. In the foreground, a shadow loomed, wearing a ranger's hat. Sarah's breath hitched. This is from '89, same night they disappeared. Jesse's voice was a growl. That's Harlow. Had to be. Ruiz shook his head, his face pale. There's more, ma'am. We ran the tent for DNA last night. Got hits for Mark, Evan, and Chris, but there's another profile. Partial, no match in the system. Sarah's mind raced. Someone else was in that tent. Jesse grabbed the map, his hand shaking. No, Name Gully. That's where we need to go. Sarah nodded, but her gut churned. The bullet casing felt heavy in her hand, its cold metal whispering violence. She glanced at the tree line, where the pines swayed in a wind that carried no sound. We're not alone up here, she said, her voice low. I can feel it. They hiked another half-mile, following the map's faded lines. The trail narrowed, the air growing colder, heavier. No Name Gully was a shadowed cleft in the mountain, a place where the sun barely reached. The ground was soft, littered with pine needles and broken branches. Sarah's flashlight swept the area, catching glints of quartz and something else. A piece of fabric, blue, snagged on a bramble. She knelt, her heart pounding. It was denim, torn from a jacket, with a faint C stitched into the hem. Chris, Jesse whispered, his voice breaking. That's his. Before Sarah could respond, a sharp crack split the air, a branch snapping, too deliberate to be natural. She spun, her Glock drawn, her flashlight cutting through the fog. Who's there? She shouted, her voice echoing off the rocks. Silence answered, but the air was thick, suffocating. Jesse grabbed a rock, his knuckles white. Show yourself, you bastard. A low, rhythmic tapping began, tap tap tap, like stones clacking together, just like Jake and Ellie had described. It came from the gully's depths, where the shadows pooled like ink. Sarah's beam caught a flicker of movement, a figure, swift and dark, vanishing behind a boulder. Her heart lurched. Jesse, stay close. They edged forward, the tapping growing louder, more insistent. The gully felt alive, its walls closing in, the air sharp with the scent of wet earth and something sour, like decay. Sarah's flashlight landed on a narrow crevice, barely wide enough for a person. Inside, something glinted, a rusted hatch, half buried in the dirt, its edges etched with strange, spiraling symbols. What the hell is that? Jesse whispered, his voice trembling. Sarah's mouth went dry. I don't know. But it's not supposed to be here. She reached for the hatch, her fingers brushing the cold metal. The tapping stopped, and for a moment, the silence was deafening. Then, from the darkness beyond the crevice, a voice hissed, a low, guttural whisper that froze her blood. You shouldn't have come. Sarah stumbled back, her Glock raised, her flashlight shaking. Jesse grabbed her arm, his eyes wide with fear. Sarah, what the hell was that? She didn't answer. The whisper echoed in her mind, chilling her to the core. The hatch, the symbols, the bullet casing, they weren't random. Someone had been here, 19 years ago, and they were still watching. The boys hadn't just vanished. They'd stumbled into something that didn't want to be found. The air in No Name Gully clung to Sarah Hollins like a damp shroud, thick with the scent of pine and something sharper, decay, maybe, or fear. Her Glock trembled in her hand as she stared at the rusted hatch, its spiraling symbols etched deep into the metal. The whisper, "You shouldn't have come," still echoed in her skull, low and guttural, like it had crawled up from the earth itself. Jesse Bennett stood beside her, his rock clutched like a lifeline, his breath ragged in the 40 degrees Fahrenheit chill. The Sierra Nevada loomed around them, its peaks stabbing the twilight sky, silent but watchful. Sarah, Jesse hissed, his voice barely above a whisper. We need to get the hell out of here. That voice wasn't human. She shook her head, her flashlight beam locked on the hatch. We're not running, Jess. Not until we know what's down there. Her words were brave, but her heart hammered, memories of Lisa's disappearance in '95 clawing at her. She'd failed her friend then. She wouldn't fail these boys now. Jesse's eyes were wild, his knuckles white. You heard it, Sarah. It knows we're here. Whatever's in that hatch, it's tied to Mark, to all of them. Before she could respond, a sharp crack split the air, a branch snapping, too close, too deliberate. Sarah spun, her Glock raised, her flashlight slicing through the fog. The gully was a maze of shadows, pines twisting into shapes that seemed to move when she wasn't looking. Show yourself, she shouted, her voice echoing off the granite walls. Silence answered, heavy and oppressive, like the mountain was holding its breath. Then, the tapping started again, tap tap tap, slow, rhythmic, coming from the crevice's depths. Jesse grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. Sarah, we're sitting ducks out here. She yanked free, her jaw tight. Cover me. She edged toward the hatch, her boots sinking into the soft earth. The symbols on the metal were unlike anything she'd seen, spirals within spirals, like the stone's circle on the ridge, but sharper, almost alive. Her fingers brushed the latch, cold and slick with moss. It creaked open, revealing a narrow shaft descending into darkness, a rusted ladder bolted to the stone. Jesse's voice cracked. You're not seriously going down there, are you? Sarah didn't answer. She clipped her flashlight to her belt, its beam cutting a thin path into the void. Stay up here. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, call Tom. Like hell, Jesse snapped, tossing the rock aside. I'm coming with you. Mark's down there somewhere, I can feel it. She wanted to argue, but the desperation in his eyes stopped her. She nodded, and they descended, the ladder groaning under their weight. The shaft smelled of whetstone and rust, the air growing colder with every rung. At the bottom, maybe 20 feet down, they found a cramped chamber, its walls lined with crumbling concrete. Sarah's flashlight swept over rusted shelves, holding glass vials filled with a murky liquid, and a table littered with yellowed papers. In the corner, a pile of old gear backpacks, a broken radio, a pair of boots caked in mud. Jesse's breath hitched. Those boots, they're Chris's. He had those Nikes, same damn laces. Sarah's stomach twisted. She moved to the table, her gloved hands sifting through the papers. They were technical schematics, stamped with a faded logo, Greenlight Initiative. The words sent a chill down her spine. Military maybe, or something shadier. One sheet listed names: Mark Bennett, Evan Price, Chris Cruz, the 10th of June, 1989. Witnesses. Containment required. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't a lost hiker case. The boys had seen something they shouldn't have. Sarah, look at this, Jesse whispered, holding up a Polaroid from the pile. It was grainy, taken in the storm, showing the boys' tent from a distance. But in the foreground, a figure stood tall, in a dark jacket, a ranger's hat pulled low. A green light pulsed behind him, unnatural, like a flare from a sci-fi flick. That's not possible, Sarah said, her voice shaking. That kind of light LED tech like that wasn't around in '89. Jesse's face pallid. Then, what the hell were they doing out here? Before she could answer, the radio on the table crackled to life, spitting static. A voice cut through, distorted but clear enough to freeze her blood. You're too late. The words slithered through the chamber, and the vials on the shelves rattled, as if something had shaken the earth. Sarah grabbed Jesse's arm, pulling him toward the ladder. Move, now. They scrambled up, the ladder creaking under their weight. The tapping started again, tap tap tap, louder, closer, echoing from above. Sarah's flashlight flickered, casting wild shadows. They burst out of the hatch, gasping in the cold air, only to find the gully shrouded in fog, thick and suffocating. The pines loomed like sentinels, their branches clawing at the sky. Run, Sarah shouted, but before they could move, a figure emerged from the Foga man, tall and lean, in a black jacket, his face hidden by a hood. He held an axe, its blade glinting in the moonlight. Sarah raised her Glock, her voice steady despite her fear. Drop it. Now. The figure didn't move. He tilted his head, as if studying them, then raised the axe. A single gunshot cracked through the gully. Sarah's warning shot, kicking up dirt at his feet. The figure froze, then bolted, vanishing into the trees faster than any man should move. Jesse's voice was a growl. Who the hell was that? Sarah's heart pounded, her flashlight sweeping the fog. I don't know, but he's not getting away. She took off after him, Jesse at her heels, their boots pounding the soft earth. The trail twisted through the pines, the fog swallowing their path. Branches snapped underfoot, and the tapping followed, relentless, like a hunter's drumbeat. They stumbled into a clearing, gasping, only to find nothing, no figure, no tracks, just the eerie silence of the gully. Sarah's beam caught a glint on the ground, a second silver ring, identical to the MEC one, but with an added engraving, 1989. Her blood ran cold. Jesse, look at this. He snatched it, his hand shaking. This is Mark's. I'd know it anywhere. But 1989? How's that possible? Sarah didn't answer. Her eyes locked on the tree line, where the fog seemed to pulse, almost alive. The radio in her pack crackled again, spitting static, then a voice, Evan's voice, unmistakable, desperate. Help us. They're coming. Jesse's face drained of color. That's him. That's my brother's friend. Sarah grabbed the radio, her voice trembling. Evan, can you hear me? Where are you? Static answered, then silence. The fog thickened, curling around them like fingers. Sarah's flashlight flickered, then died, plunging them into darkness. The tapping resumed, closer now, circling them. Jesse grabbed her arm, his voice a whisper. Sarah, we're not alone. She nodded, her Glock raised, her pulse roaring in her ears. Stay close. We're getting out of here. They moved back toward the trail, every step heavy with dread. The fog was a living thing, slithering through the pines, muffling their footsteps. Sarah's mind raced. Greenlight initiative, containment, witnesses. The boys hadn't just gotten lost. They'd stumbled into something big, something someone had killed to keep secret. And now, 19 years later, that secret was hunting her and Jesse. They reached the trailhead, where Sarah's Bronco waited, its headlights cutting through the fog. She fumbled for her keys, her hand shaking. Get in, she said, her voice low. We need to get this to the station. Jesse slid into the passenger seat, clutching the ring. What the hell's going on, Sarah? That voice. It was Evan. He's alive. Or someone wants us to think he is, she said, starting the engine. The Bronco roared to life, its tires crunching gravel as they peeled out. The fog pressed against the windows, like it was trying to claw its way in. Sarah's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, expecting to see the hooded figure, but the road was empty. Back at the station, Sarah spread the new evidence on the table. The schematics, the Polaroid with the green light, the bullet casing, the second ring. Tom was there, his face grim as he listened to their story. You telling me you saw some guy with an axe, and heard Evan on the radio? He shook his head. This is getting out of hand, Sarah. She slammed the schematics down, her voice sharp. Out of hand? Tom, this says containment required. The boys saw something tied to this green light thing, and someone's still covering it up. Jesse leaned in, his eyes blazing. And you knew, didn't you? You were a rookie in '89. You buried that gas station call, didn't you? Tom's face reddened. Watch it, Bennett. I was following orders. Sheriff back then said it was a dead end. Orders? Sarah snapped. From who? Harlow? Or someone higher? Tom looked away, his jaw tight. You don't know what you're digging into, Sarah. Drop it. She stepped closer, her voice low and fierce. Not a chance. If you're hiding something, Tom, I'll drag it out of you myself. Before he could respond, Clara burst through the door, her face ashen. Sarah, I found something else. In Harlow's notes. She held up a photocopy, her hands trembling. He wasn't just a ranger, he was working for them, Greenlight. And he wrote about a signal, something they were testing in the mountains. The boys saw it. Sarah's blood ran cold. She grabbed the note, scanning it. The 11th of June, 1989. Signals active. Boys got too close. Can't let them talk. Her eyes locked on the Polaroid, the green light pulsing in the storm. There wasn't a flare. It was a signal that wasn't supposed to exist in 1989. Jesse's voice was a growl. They were killed for this, weren't they? Sarah didn't answer. Her mind was racing, piecing together the fragments. The boys, the storm, Harlow, green light, and now, the figure with the axe, the whisper, the radio. Someone was still out there, guarding the secret, and they weren't done. She grabbed her radio, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. Ruiz, get a team to No Name Gully. Full sweep, now. Ha! As she hung up, a sharp bang echoed from the alley outside, like a trash can toppling. Sarah's hand went to her Glock, her eyes meeting Jesse's. Stay here, she said, moving toward the door. Jesse grabbed her arm. Like hell. I'm with you. They stepped into the alley, the fog thick and cold, swallowing the streetlights. Sarah's flashlight swept the darkness, catching glints of broken glass and overturned bins. Then, her beam landed on something, a third Polaroid, pinned to the station wall with a rusted nail. It showed Mark, Evan, and Chris, their faces pale, their hands bound, a green light glowing behind them, and in the corner, a single word, scrawled in red ink, run. Sarah's heart stopped. The tapping started again, tap, tap, tap from the shadows at the alley's end. And then, a voice, low and chilling, slithered through the fog. You're next. The alley behind the Bishop Sheriff Station was a black void, the fog so thick it swallowed Sarah Holland's flashlight beam like a hungry beast. The Polaroid with its scrawled run and the chilling whisper, "You're next," hung in her mind, sharp as a blade. Her Glock was steady in her hand, but her pulse roared, every nerve screaming danger. Jesse Bennett stood beside her, his breath ragged, clutching a tire iron he'd grabbed from the Bronco. The tapping tap 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 had stopped, but the silence was worse, heavy and suffocating, like the mountain itself was closing in. "Sarah," Jesse whispered, his voice low and fierce. "We need to move. Whoever left that photo's still out here." She nodded, her eyes scanning the shadows. The alley stank of damp asphalt and rotting trash, the overturned bins glinting under her light. "Back to the station," she said, her voice tight. "We need to lock this down." They edged toward the door, their boots crunching on broken glass. Sarah's radio crackled, Deputy Ruiz's voice cutting through. "Hollins, teams at No Name Gully. Found something weird, more of those spiral carvings. You want us to dig?" "Not yet," she snapped, her eyes flicking to the fog. "Hold position, we're coming." The station's back door was 10 feet away when a sharp clank echoed from the darkness like metal striking stone. Sarah spun, her flashlight catching a glint of rusted axe, half buried in the dirt, its handle worn smooth. Her blood ran cold. It was the same axe the hooded figure had held in the gully. Jesse's voice was a growl. "That's his. The bastard's taunting us." Sarah grabbed the axe, wrapping it in her jacket. "Evidence," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "We're not playing his game." They burst into the station, slamming the door behind them. Clara Vance and Tom Reeves were still there, Clara hunched over Harlow's notes, Tom pacing like a caged bear. The Polaroid from the alley lay on the table, its image of the bound boy's mark. Evan, crystering back, the green light behind them pulsing like a heartbeat. "What the hell happened?" Tom demanded, his eyes on the axe. "You look like you saw a ghost." "Worse," Sarah said, tossing the axe onto the table. "Someone's out there, Tom. Left this photo," whispered. "You're next. And I'm betting they're tied to this." She jabbed a finger at the green light initiative schematics, the words containment required burning in her mind. Jesse's face was a mask of fury. "You knew, didn't you, Tom? You buried that gas station call in '89. What else are you hiding?" Tom's jaw tightened, his hands clenched. "I told you, Bennett, I followed orders. Sheriff back then said to drop it. I was a rookie, for Christ's sake." "Orders from who?" Sarah snapped, stepping closer. "Harlow? Or someone pulling his strings?" Tom looked away, his face pale under the fluorescent lights. You don't get it, Sarah. You're digging into something bigger than us. Drop it, or you'll end up like the boys? Jesse roared, grabbing Tom's collar. Say it, you son of a bitch. Clara stood, her voice sharp. Enough. Fighting won't get us answers. She held up Harlow's journal, her hands trembling. I found something else. Harlow wasn't just a ranger. He was a contractor for Greenlight, a Black Ops project, testing some kind of signal tech in the Sierra. The boys saw it. Sarah. That green light in the Polaroid? It was their signal. Sarah's breath caught. Signal tech? In '89? That's decades ahead of its time. Exactly, Clara said, her eyes blazing. Greenlight was off the books military. Maybe CIA. Harlow's notes say they were testing non-lethal containment, but something went wrong. The boys got too close. Jesse released Tom, his voice low and dangerous. They killed them for it, didn't they? My brother, Evan, Chris wiped out to keep a secret. Clara hesitated, her face grim. Maybe. But Harlow's last entry. It's weird. He wrote, they took them, not dead. Not yet. Sarah's heart lurched. Took them, where? Clara shook her head. Doesn't say. But there's a map in his notes, leading to an old mine shaft, sealed after a collapse in the 50s. It's near No Name Gully. End of sec. Sarah grabbed the map, her pulse racing. It was crude, drawn in Harlow's shaky hand, with a red X marking a spot labeled Site B. The spiral symbols from the hatch were scrawled in the margins, like a warning. We need to check this out, she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her. Now. Tom grabbed her arm, his voice low. Sarah, listen to me. You go down that mine, you're not coming back. Greenlight's still out there, people who don't like loose ends. She yanked free, her eyes blazing. Then they're about to meet one hell of a loose end. Jesse nodded, his tire iron still in hand. I'm with you, let's end this. Clara's voice was soft, almost pleading. Be careful, Sarah. I ignored that call in '89. Don't make my mistake. Sarah didn't answer. She grabbed her gear flashlight, Glock, radio and headed for the Bronco, Jesse at her side. The fog outside was thicker now, a living thing that pressed against the windows, muffling the world. As they drove toward No Name Gully, the radio crackled, spitting static. Then a voice, Evan's voice, faint but unmistakable. Help us, they're coming. Jesse's face drained of color. That's him. Sarah. That's Evan. She gripped the wheel, her knuckles white. It's a trick, Jess. Has to be. No one's broadcasting from '89. But her words felt hollow. The green light, the signal, the containment required, it all pointed to something bigger, something that didn't die with the boys. The mountain was alive with secrets, and they were about to walk straight into its jaws. No Name Gully was a shadowed wound in the Sierra Nevada, its walls jagged and cold, the air heavy with the scent of wet stone and rot. Sarah's Bronco skidded to a stop at the trailhead, its headlights barely piercing the fog that clung to everything like a curse. The temperature gauge read 38 degrees Fahrenheit, but the chill felt deeper, cutting through her jacket. Jesse jumped out, his tire iron glinting under the moonlight, his eyes fixed on the gully's depths. Ruiz's team should be here, Sarah said, her flashlight sweeping the path. Where the hell are they? Her radio crackled, Ruiz's voice faint. Hollins, we're at the mine, found something you need. The line cut to static, sharp and angry. Sarah's gut twisted. Ruiz? Come in, Ruiz. No answer. She grabbed her Glock, her pulse hammering. Something's wrong. Let's move. They hiked down, the trail slick with moss, the pines whispering in a wind that carried no sound. The gully felt alive, its shadows slithering across the rocks, the fog curling like fingers. Sarah's flashlight landed on the mine shaft, a gaping maw in the mountainside, boarded up with rotting planks, the spiral symbols carved deep into the wood. A rusted chain hung loose, the lock shattered. Jesse's voice was a whisper. This is it. Site B. Sarah nodded, prying the planks free. The air inside was stale, thick with the smell of rust and damp earth. Her flashlight cut a thin path, revealing a tunnel that sloped downward, its walls studded with rusted bolts and crumbling beams. "Stay close," she said, stepping inside. The tunnel was claustrophobic, the ceiling low, the air pressing against her chest. Their boots echoed on the stone, every sound amplified in the suffocating darkness. Sarah's beam caught glints of metal old mining carts, a broken pickaxe, and something else. A steel door, set into the wall, its surface etched with the same spiral symbols. A keypad, rusted but intact, glowed faintly green. "What the hell?" Jesse muttered, his tire iron raised. "This ain't no mine." Sarah's heart pounded. "It's a lab. Greenlight's lab." She pressed the keypad, but it beeped angrily, locked. Her flashlight swept the tunnel, landing on a pile of debris backpacks, a shattered radio, and a notebook, its pages yellowed. She grabbed it, her hands trembling. The cover was stamped, Greenlight Initiative, Site B log. She flipped it open, her breath catching. The 10th of June, 1989. Signal test successful. 3 unauthorized witnesses detected, containment initiated. Below, in a different hand. They fought hard. Took them to the chamber. Signal still active. Jesse's voice was a growl. They took them here. My brother, Evan, Chris, they were alive. Sarah's mind raced. The green light, the signal, the containment, it was all real. The boys had stumbled into a Black Ops project, and someone had silenced them. But why was the keypad still glowing? Why was the signal still active? Before she could answer, a sharp bang echoed from the tunnel's depths like a door slamming. Sarah spun, her Glock raised, her flashlight shaking. "Ruiz, that you?" No answer. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper. Then, a figure stepped into the light hall, in a black jacket, a hood hiding his face. He held a rifle, its barrel glinting. Sarah's voice was steel. "Drop it, now." The figure didn't move. He tilted his head, his voice low and distorted, like it came from a radio. "You shouldn't be here." Jesse lunged, his tire iron swinging, but the figure sidestepped, impossibly fast, and fired a shot. The bullet grazed Sarah's arm, burning like fire. She screamed, dropping her flashlight, but kept her Glock raised. "Jesse, get down." Another shot rang out, kicking up dirt. The figure bolted, vanishing into the tunnel's depths. Sarah clutched her arm, blood seeping through her jacket, her vision swimming. "We need to go, Jess. Now." But Jesse was staring at the tunnel, his eyes wild. "Number? They're down there." "I'm not leaving." Sarah grabbed his arm, her voice fierce. "We're no good to them dead. Move." They scrambled back to the entrance, the tunnel's walls closing in, the air thick with dread. Outside, the fog was a wall, the gully silent except for their ragged breaths. Sarah's radio crackled, but no one answered. Her arm throbbed, blood dripping onto the ground, but her mind was clear. Greenlight was real. The boys had been taken, not killed, and someone was still guarding the secret. They reached the Bronco, Sarah fumbling for her keys. "We need backup," she said, her voice shaking. "And we need to find Ruiz." Jesse slid into the passenger seat, his face grim. "That guy, he wasn't alone. I saw another shadow, Sarah. Back in the tunnel." She froze, her hand on the ignition. "Another shadow?" "Yeah," he said, his voice low. "And it was holding something looked like a radio. Same kind we found in the hatch." Sarah's blood ran cold. She started the engine, the Bronco roaring to life. As they sped down the trail, her eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. The fog parted for a moment, revealing a figure standing on the road tall, in a ranger's hat, a green light pulsing in his hand. She blinked, and he was gone. Back at the station, Sarah's arm was bandaged, but the pain was nothing compared to the dread gnawing at her. She spread the new evidence on the table, the green light log, the spiral carvings, the radio. Clara was there, her face pale, Tom pacing, his eyes avoiding hers. "We're not alone in this," Sarah said, her voice steady. "Greenlight's still active. That signal, the lab, it's all connected, and someone's trying to stop us. Jesse's voice was a growl. Then we hit back. Find that mine, blow it open. Tom grabbed her arm, his voice low. Sarah, you're in over your head. Walk away. She yanked free, her eyes blazing. Not a chance. Clara held up a new document, her hands trembling. I dug deeper. Found a classified memo, leaked in '90. Greenlight wasn't just signals. They were testing something alive. Something they couldn't control. Sarah's heart stopped. She grabbed the memo, scanning it. Subject, entity containment, Site B. June 1989. Witnesses neutralized. Signal breach detected. Her eyes locked on the last line. Entity remains active. All personnel at risk. Before she could speak, the station's lights flickered, plunging them into darkness. The radio on the table crackled, spitting static, then a voice, Mark's voice, clear and desperate. Sarah, don't come back. The lights snapped on, and a new Polaroid lay on the table, fresh, still wet, showing Sarah and Jesse in the mine, a green light glowing behind them. And in the corner, a figure in a ranger's hat, holding an axe, his eyes burning through the fog. The Bishop Sheriff Station was a flickering tomb, the lights buzzing back to life after plunging Sarah Hollins and her team into darkness. The fresh Polaroid on the table showing her and Jesse Bennett in the mine, a green light pulsing behind them, a figure in a ranger's hat clutching an axe felt like a taunt from the mountain itself. Mark's voice on the radio, Sarah, don't come back, still slithered through her mind, chilling her to the bone. Her bandaged arm throbbed, blood seeping through the gauze, but her focus was razor sharp, slicing through the fog of fear. It was May 2008, and the Sierra Nevada's secrets were unraveling, but at a cost she wasn't sure she could pay. Jesse stood frozen, his tire iron trembling in his hand, his eyes locked on the Polaroid. That's us, Sarah, in the mine. Someone took this tonight. Clara Vance, her gray hair wild, clutched the leaked Greenlight Initiative memo, her voice shaking. This isn't just a cover-up, that memo said, entity. Something they couldn't control. What the hell were they doing up there? Deputy Tom Reeves paced, his face pale, his hands clenched. You're all losing it, he muttered, but his voice cracked, betraying his fear. It's a prank, some sick bastard messing with us. Sarah slammed the Polaroid down, her voice fierce. A prank, with Mark's voice on the radio, with this photo, taken hours ago? Open your eyes, Tom. Greenlight was real. The boys saw it, and something is still guarding it. Jesse stepped toward Tom, his eyes blazing. You were part of this, weren't you? You buried that call in '89. You knew about Greenlight. What did they do to my brother? Tom's face reddened, his fists balled. I told you, Bennett, I was a rookie. Sheriff told me to drop it, said it was above my pay grade. I didn't know about no damn entity. Christ. Above your pay grade. Sarah snapped, her Glock still holstered, but her hand itching to draw. Who gave the orders, Tom? Harlow, or someone higher? Tom's eyes darted to the door, his voice low. You don't get it, Sarah. Greenlight wasn't just signals. It was bigger. People disappeared if they asked too many questions. I kept my head down to stay alive. Clara's voice cut through, sharp and urgent. Enough. We're wasting time. Harlow's map points to that mine site B. If the boys were taken, that's where we'll find answers. Sarah nodded, her pulse hammering. We go back. Now. Full team, lights, weapons, no surprises this time. Tom grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. You're walking into a trap, Sarah. You saw that figure, the axe. You think you can fight that? She yanked free, her eyes blazing. I'm done running. Those boys deserve the truth. And if you're hiding anything, Tom, I'll drag it out of you myself. Jesse's voice was a growl. Let's move. I'm not waiting another 19 years. The drive to No Name Gully was a blur, Sarah's Ford Bronco tearing through the fog-choked roads, its headlights barely piercing the 35 degrees Fahrenheit night. Jesse sat shotgun, clutching the second MEC ring, his knuckles white. Clara was in the back, her flashlight sweeping over Harlow's journal, her face grim. Tom had stayed behind, claiming he'd coordinate with the state police, but Sarah didn't trust him. His evasions, his fear, it all pointed to a man with secrets. The radio crackled, Deputy Ruiz's voice faint. "Hollins, we're at the mine. Something's wrong. Lights everywhere." The line cut to static, sharp and angry. Sarah's gut twisted. "Ruiz, come in?" No answer. She floored the gas, the Bronco skidding on gravel. "They're in trouble." Jesse's voice was low, haunted. That voice on the radio, it was Mark. "I know it was." "He's still out there, Sarah." She didn't answer, her mind racing. The green light log, the spiral symbols, the entitlement of it made sense, but it all pointed to Site B. The boys had seen something in that storm, something that changed everything. And now, 19 years later, it was calling her name. They reached the gully, the mine shaft a gaping wound in the mountain, its boarded entrance splintered. Ruiz's team was nowhere in sight, their radios silent. Sarah's flashlight swept the ground, catching glints of broken glass, and a single boot print too fresh, too deliberate. Her blood ran cold. "Someone's been here." Clara clutched the journal, her voice trembling. Harlow wrote about a chamber deep in the mine, where they kept it. The entity. Jesse's eyes narrowed. "Kept what? Some kind of weapon?" "Or something worse," Clara said, her voice barely a whisper. "He said it. Spoke to him. Told him to protect the signal." "Oh." Sarah's heart pounded, but she pushed the fear down. "We go in. Find Ruiz. Find the chamber. Whatever's down there, we face it." They stepped into the mine, the air stale and heavy, the tunnel walls closing in like a trap. Sarah's flashlight cut a thin path, revealing the steel door from before, its keypad still glowing green. The spiral symbols seemed to pulse, alive in the flickering light. She pressed the keypad, but it beeped angrily, locked. Jesse slammed his tire iron against it, the clang echoing like a gunshot. "Easy, Jess," Sarah said, her voice steady. "We'll find another way." Her beam swept the tunnel, landing on a narrow crevice, barely wide enough for a person. She squeezed through, Jesse and Clara following, the walls scraping their jackets. The crevice opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness, its floor littered with rusted equipment monitors, cables, and a massive steel cylinder, etched with spirals, glowing faintly green. "Holy shit," Jesse whispered, his tire iron lowering. "This is it, their lab." Sarah's flashlight swept the chamber, catching glints of glass vials, shattered beakers, and a control panel, its screens cracked but still humming. In the center, a platform held 3 restraints leather straps, stained dark, size for humans. Her stomach churned. They held them here. Mark, Evan, Chris. Clara's voice was a whisper. "Look at this." She held up a logbook from the control panel, its pages brittle. The 11th of June, 1989. Subject secured. Signal exposure initiated. Entity contact established. Below, in red ink. They saw it. Can't let them leave. Sarah's blood ran cold. Entity contact? What the hell were they doing? Before Clara could answer, a sharp crack echoed from the chamber's depths like metal buckling. Sarah spun, her Glock raised, her flashlight shaking. "Ruiz? That you?" A figure staggered into the light. Ruiz, his face pale, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. "Hollins, we found something." He collapsed, his radio clattering to the ground. Sarah rushed to him, checking his pulse. "Ruiz, stay with me." "What did you find?" His eyes fluttered, his voice faint. "Chamber. Deeper. Lights." It moved. He passed out, his breath shallow. Jesse's voice was wild. "Deeper. We need to go, Sarah." She nodded, grabbing Ruiz's radio. "Clara, stay with him. Get him out if you can." Clara's face was pale, but she nodded. "Be careful, Sarah. Whatever's down there, it's not human." Sarah and Jesse moved deeper, the chamber narrowing into a tunnel, its walls slick with condensation. The air was frigid, the green light pulsing stronger, like a heartbeat. Sarah's flashlight caught a second door steel, unmarked, but ajar, a sliver of green light spilling through. She pushed it open, her Glock ready, and froze. The room was a shrine to the spiral symbols carved into every surface, glowing green, the air humming with static. In the center, a crystal-like device pulsed, suspended in a web of wires, emitting the green light. Around it, 3 Polaroids were pinned to the wall. Mark, Evan, Chris, their faces pale, eyes hollow, as if something had drained them. Below each, a date, the 12th of June, 1989. Terminated. Sarah's heart shattered. "They're gone," she whispered, her voice breaking. Jesse's face twisted, his tire iron clattering to the floor. No, they can't be. But the room wasn't empty. A figure stood in the shadows. Tom, his face obscured by a ranger's hat, a rifle in his hands. His voice was low, broken. "I tried to warn you, Sarah. You wouldn't listen." Sarah's Glock snapped up, her voice steel. "Tom, drop it, now." He shook his head, his eyes haunted. "I was part of Greenlight, Sarah. Just a grunt, following orders. They told me to bury the call, keep the mine quiet. The boys, they saw the entity. It spoke to them, through the signal. We couldn't let them talk." Jesse lunged, his voice a roar. "You killed them, you bastard." Tom raised the rifle, his hand shaking. "I didn't. They took them into the chamber, the entity. It needed them, I don't know why." Sarah's voice was fierce. "What's the entity, Tom? Tell me." Tom's eyes darted to the crystal, its light pulsing faster. "It's not from here. Greenlight found it, thought they could control it, but it controls us. It's still here, Sarah, in the signal." The crystal flared, a green light blinding them. A voice, Mark's voice, but wrong, distorted, boomed from the wires. "You can't stop it." The walls shook, the spirals glowing like fire. Sarah stumbled, her Glock slipping from her hand. Jesse grabbed her, pulling her back. "Run!" he shouted, but the doors slammed shut, sealing them in. The crystal pulsed, the air crackling with energy. Tom dropped his rifle, his face a mask of terror. "It's awake," he whispered. A shadow moved in the light, a figure, not human, its form shifting, spiraling, like the symbols on the walls. Sarah's heart stopped. "Jesse, we need to." The figure lunged, impossibly fast, and Tom screamed, his body yanked into the light. The scream cut off, and the crystal dimmed, the shadow gone. The door creaked open, the green light fading to a faint glow. Sarah grabbed Jesse, her voice shaking. "Go. Now." They ran, the tunnel collapsing behind them, dust choking the air. They burst out of the mine, gasping, the fog swallowing the gully. Clara was there, Ruiz leaning on her, his face pale. "What happened?" she demanded. Sarah didn't answer, her mind reeling. The entity, the signal, Tom's confession, it was too much. They piled into the Bronco, speeding back to Bishop, the mountain's silence deafening. Days later, the station was quiet, the case officially stalled. Tom was gone, his body never found. The mine was sealed, declared a hazard, but Sarah knew the truth. Greenlight was real, and the entity was still out there, in the signal, in the mountain. She sat at her desk, the Polaroid spread before her. Mark, Evan, Chris, their faces frozen in time. Jesse stood by the window, his face hollow. "They're dead, aren't they?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "The log said terminated." "But Tom, he said they were taken. I don't know what to believe." Clara walked in, a manila envelope in her hand. "This came today. No postmark." She opened it, her face paling. Inside was a letter, scrawled in blue ink. "They're alive. Stop looking, or they won't be." A piece of denim was taped to Evan's jacket, the E stitched in red. Sarah's heart lurched. The handwriting matched Mark's, but the ink was fresh, 2008 fresh. This can't be real." Jesse grabbed the letter, his voice breaking. "It's him. Mark's alive." Clara's voice was soft. "Or someone wants us to think he is." Sarah's mind raced. The entity, the signal, the spiral, had it taken the boys, or was Greenlight still playing games? She didn't know, but the letter was a lifeline, a sliver of hope in the darkness. That night, Bishop held a memorial at the trailhead, a sea of candles flickering under the stars. Donna Bennett was there, clutching Mark's ring, her face etched with grief. Jesse stood beside her, his eyes on the mountain, the letter in his pocket. Sarah spoke, her voice steady but heavy. Mark, Evan, Chris, they were our sons, our brothers, our friends. We won't forget them. We'll keep looking. The crowd dispersed, leaving Sarah alone at the trailhead. She buried a weatherproof box under the memorial plaque, filled with the Polaroids, the rings, the letter of promise to the boys. As she stood, a chill ran through her, the air heavy with the scent of pine and something sour. A rustle came from the trees, and Sarah's hand went to her Glock. Her flashlight swept the darkness, catching a glint of Polaroid camera, old and battered, resting on a rock. Beside it, a fresh photo, still wet, showing Mark, Evan, and Chris standing in the fog, their eyes hollow, a green light pulsing behind them. In the corner, a single word, scrawled in red, forever. Sarah's heart stopped. The mountain was silent, but the fog seemed to whisper, curling around her like a lover's touch. She grabbed the camera, her hand shaking, and ran, the photo clutched tight. The boys were gone, but their voices lingered, carried on the wind, a secret the Sierra Nevada would never surrender.